Chapter 2. When I was 9, nothing pleased me more than going to buy paraffin for the lantern. The lantern itself was considered expensive, of course. Very few homes in the village even had electric bulbs back then. At least father could still afford paraffin every day. That much was always available. At the village center stood the only shop nearly a mile away from home. Namu, go get us paraffin from Mr. Katamba. Tell him I will bring the money in the evening. That was father's voice. I doubt anyone could understand the strange excitement I felt during those walks. As for the money, I already knew better. Father had once tasted my reluctance. Never again. The last time I returned home late without the paraffin, the only explanation I carried back with me had stirred anger deep within him. From then on, he no longer trusted my hands so easily. Be back before sunset? He always shouted after me, as though the only thing troubling his mind was how long I stayed at the village center. But no, it must have been something else. Something not about the center itself, but about the lonely route I had to take. Mother always urged him to wait for Mado to return home first, worried about how risky the path could be for such a young girl. Still, her suggestion usually dissolved into silence. Naka and Naki already did the same, father would always reply. Those were your aunts, Maggie. Though back then they felt more like older sisters than the titles fate later gave them. Tadanaka, you must understand these children are not the same. Same father, same mother, but behavior always differs. Do not compare them too much. Namu may be far different from her sisters. Mother's words often drifted from the smoky kitchen. Perhaps that was one reason father underestimated such worries. The image of him still remains clear in my mind. Seated in that single armchair outside the house, his back resting heavily against it, eyes fixed on the clouds as though he could predict the weather itself. His black and white beard swayed gently with the wind passing through his little resting place. That was always the final image I carried with me before leaving home despite mother's warnings. Let the sun scorch. Let the muddy road swallow my feet. My mind cared about nothing except the paraffin, and perhaps the matchbox too, if home needed it badly enough. Plantations stretched endlessly on both sides of the road. If it was not banana gardens, then it was coffee. Farming was the heartbeat of the village. Most boys worked in the gardens even when their parents were away. It was not because no one valued education or rest. I often overheard fathers discussing such things during village meetings. If any boy is to grow into a son worthy of this village, then he must first taste the true dust of hard work before his wife questions it. At that age, my young mind could barely understand such sayings. The words of elders often left me confused. Still, those were among the least things occupying my thoughts. At least mother had taught me one thing clearly. Greeting. Elders deserved respect in a special way, she explained. If I failed to kneel while greeting as a girl, then I was not worthy of being called a good child. Father added that girls who never greeted properly stood little chance of marriage. Yet I had watched boys my age do the complete opposite. When they greeted, they remained standing. Sometimes they simply passed elders without saying a single word. Perhaps that alone was enough to delay me on my way to the trading center. Had it not been for the many elders I met along the road, and those whose homes I passed, I would probably have beaten father's timing. Eventually, I learned a small trick to solve the problem. Taking the narrow path branching away from the main road saved time, though a few problems clung stubbornly to that idea. If I happened to find Mado in Mr. Selim's compound playing football with his friends, then I had no choice but to pass through Mr. Kiesu's compound instead, where his stubborn son constantly teased me. Most times, he became the very reason I delayed returning home. Fortunately, none of those situations happened that day. The heat was unbearable. The ground nearly burned my bare feet as I ran back home from the shop, lifting each foot quickly as though the earth itself had caught fire beneath me. Everything would have remained normal had it not been for the knots Kuti tied across the narrow path leading through their compound. He must have seen me coming and hurried to tie them just in time. The force of the fall made me realize how fast my feet had been moving, never resting long enough against the ground. The paraffin spilled, and I tasted the dust.